Pete Hegseth arrived on Capitol Hill for critical meetings, again with Republican senators. He also just posted on Twitter, essentially, that he is not backing down from his fight to be President-elect Donald Trump's next, defense secretary. And this is also after there's a lot of movement on this morning. His mother was just on television last hour defending her son and saying he is a, quote, changed man. Hegseth's mom made a direct appeal to Donald Trump in her appearance on Fox News. But we all know, as has been discussed and the reporting suggests, that Hegseth faces trouble right now. A rocky road to confirmation, to say the least. The road so rocky, maybe, that we learned last hour that the president-elect has actually spoken with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis about potentially replacing Hegseth for the job as being a candidate to head up the Pentagon. He is facing several allegations of Hegseth of drunken misbehavior, sexual misconduct, and financial mismanagement of the veterans nonprofit that he once ran. Hegseth's mother speaking out now after making headlines this week when a 2018 email that she wrote to her son was published. The email in part said this: "On behalf of all of the women, and I know it's many, you have abused in some way, I say get some help and take an honest look at yourself." That was then. Here is her message now.
Pete is a new person. He's redeemed, forgiven, changed. I think we all are after 7 years. I believe he's the man for the job. I know Pete, and the people who know us know Pete, and Trump knows Pete. And he knows the Pete of today. And he knows the Pete who is a good father, a good husband to Jen. He's got 7 kids. He's a wonderful son. Wonderful son, and a wonderful son to his brothers and all his friends. He's a changed man, and I just hope people will get to know who Pete is today, especially our dear female senators, that you would listen to him, listen with your heart to the truth of Pete.
With me now to discuss the path to confirmation or not, Democratic strategist Matt Bennett. Lee Carter is also here, strategic communications expert. It's great to see you guys. Thanks for being here. And Lee, you have known Pete Hegseth for quite some time.
Yes.
The appearance from his mom, hearing from Penelope there this morning, do you think it fixes the trouble that his confirmation is facing?
I don't know if it fixes it, but it certainly helps. I mean, it dimensionalizes what's happening. There is no question what happened in his previous marriage and where he is today, and I'm sure there are rocky roads behind the scenes. Pete Hegseth, that I know, is a man who is a delight to work with. I have never smelled alcohol in his breath. I have traveled with him to debates. I have traveled with him to primary states. I have traveled with him and the Fox and Friends team all over. And I've never seen any of the behavior that we're talking about. There's certainly things that he did in his past. And there's things that we've all done in our past. But I think we need to ask ourselves in this moment, what do we want to be doing when we have real questions about the and valid questions, frankly, about the people that are up for the cabinet? People are concerned about his experience. Let's leave the rest off the table. I mean, it is just, politics is a blood sport at this point, and you can understand why really good people don't want to do it when you look at what's happened here. Let's focus on what really matters. Is he qualified for the job? What happened with his previous marriage? What happened in his private life? All of that is off the table. What is on the table, and I think what we should be talking about is he the right person for this job?
I hear you, but it is all on the table. That is the politics, the reality of the politics today, and that is some of what are the real questions that we know. We've heard from Republican senators like Joni Ernst. They have questions that they want answered, and that is part of the process. That is where these questions and this vetting does take place. And to that, Matt, he's back on the Hill meeting with these key senators. And Joni Ernst is really seen as key. She is a veteran. She is a survivor of sexual assault herself. She is well respected in all corners, and which is why, and I'll read for you a quote that from a source in the Trump transition, speaking to Jake Tapper, said this: Joni isn't comfortable with Pete and he doesn't answer her questions about women in the military and about sexual assault, if she doesn't leave the meeting supporting him, there are 5 or 6 Republican senators who will oppose his nomination. Hegseth tweeted he's not backing down, though, Matt. How do you think this goes?
Well, I think he's going down because I think this is not a question of politics as blood sport. This is a question of whether this guy can perform the incredibly important duties of Secretary of Defense. Remember, the Secretary of Defense is in the chain of command, which is to say, if we are going to attack someone, the president gives the order to the Secretary of Defense. That could come at any time, day or night, as it often does, and he or she sends that down the chain. And if that person cannot be trusted to be, within their right mind, this guy is a drunk. It's very clear. It's been reported many places that he was drunk in his capacities at the nonprofits he worked at.
You can describe it one way, Matt, but I mean, the way I would have described it was slightly. I guess everyone's definition of a drunk can be different. I don't know if that's something we need to debate here, but continue.
Fair enough. Whether you call him an alcoholic or not, he clearly, on the job or socializing with his office mates, drank a lot. There's reporting on CNN that he showed up for work at Fox smelling of alcohol, which means even if he was sober when he arrived at work, he was not sober during the evening. If this guy can't be trusted to perform the duties of Secretary of Defense anytime, day or night, he can't do the job. And he's not qualified. He's never run anything. The Pentagon is an enormous operation. There's 2 million Americans under arms. It's $1 trillion a year. He simply isn't the right person for the job.
I will tell you that I think the biggest mistake that people that are opposing Pete Hegseth are making is that they're not focused on the right things. This is an all-hands attack. We're focusing on whether or not he drank. We're focusing on whether or not what he did out extracurricular activities. The point that you're making about, is he qualified for the job? Can he lead? Does he have the experience to lead an organization to the side? That is valid. That's what we should be talking about. The rest of this, it's hearsay. The anonymous sources, every one of his co-hosts, and if you look at everything, has come out and said that this is not true. Talk to the makeup artist who did his makeup every day, who would smell the alcohol on his breath, and they will tell you this is not true. And so I think we're talking about the wrong thing. Yes, you have an absolute valid concern about whether or not he is the right person for this job. But by talking about whether or not he's a drunk and calling him that kind of thing, you're taking your eyes off the prize, and I think you're making the whole thing ineffective. And I honestly think that the Democrats are doing more damage by doing this kind of thing than focusing on the real question, which everybody rightfully has. Is he the right person for the job? Is he qualified? Not based on the hearsay kind of attacks, but on the real things. Has he managed enough people to be able to do this job? Is he the right person for this job? Those are good questions. The rest of it, I find it offensive and wrong.
Can I want to just ask one thing to you guys really quickly, which is, no matter the public discussion outside, one of the key is which is the unknown, is what is the view of Donald Trump on the inside of the transition, of how this is playing out? The insight that we have today is that we're reporting from CNN Steve Contorno that Trump has spoken to, a source says that Trump has spoken to Ron DeSantis about the possibility of taking this job, that Ron DeSantis has said that he is open, if offered, to taking the job. That to me, that's where like my big question remains right now is where does the pressure stand in terms of the appetite for Donald Trump to put up with this kind of, we'll call it smoke, around him much longer? Lee, what do you think?
Well, look, I think if the president has to be prepared for anything that happens, so I'm not surprised that he's having conversations. I mean, if you even look at the betting markets right now, the betting markets have said that it's less likely, than ever that Pete Hegseth gets confirmed. So he can't be caught flat-footed. Yeah. But there is no sign that the administration is backing down from their support of him. Now, you heard in the days when Matt Gaetz was going out, there was absolute silence from the administration. You didn't hear any support. You knew that there was something going on. As yet, last night, Donald Trump Jr. was writing about his support of Pete Hegseth.
J.D. Vance just wrote a tweet in support of him, too.
And so I don't see that they are backing down. But I think, they've got to be prepared. And you got to, if the votes aren't there, the votes aren't there. And they've got to have a qualified candidate. And it looks like they're ready to move quickly. But I don't see any sign that Donald Trump's support of Pete Hegseth is breaking.
One thing I can say I'll say certainty, and then I'll have, pie in my face, is by the end of today, there should be some clearer view on where the path is headed. Only because there's a lot happening in this, and something's got to give, it seems.
Pete Hegseth, the nominee to be Secretary of Defense, is speaking on Capitol Hill.
And a wonderful process to go through and meet with senators and talk to them especially members of the Senate Armed Services Committee, whose passion is the Defense Department, and our warfighters to hear what they want to do to make sure that department is properly oriented for the threats of the world and make sure that we're putting the warfighters first. That's what Donald Trump asked me to do. Your job is to bring a warfighting ethos back to the Pentagon. Your job is to make sure that it's lethality, lethality, lethality. Everything else is gone. Everything else that distracts from that shouldn't be happening. That's the message I'm hearing from senators in that advise and consent process. And it's been a wonderful process. As far as everything else, I had a chance to sit down with Megyn Kelly today for an hour. I refer you to that interview. She asked probably all the questions you guys would like to ask.
Will you commit to not drinking? Will you commit to not drinking on the job?
I'm sure that we can think of a few more questions to ask Pete Hegseth to fact check that. I do want to bring in Manu Raju, who we just heard there in the hallway trying to get a question into Pete Hegseth. Manu, this is a high stakes appearance for Hegseth, and he's really trying to get out there in front of the cameras.
Yeah, that's right. And look, this is now a public effort beyond just a private, behind-the-scenes push to try to get Republicans in line. There are a lot of Republicans who do have concerns about all the reports that have misconduct allegations that have come out over the last several weeks. And there are more than three. Remember, he can only afford to lose 3 Republican senators in the new Senate in order to get the job and be confirmed as the next Secretary of Defense. There are more than 3 Republicans who have concerns. Whether they actually vote no, that's another question, but there are at least more than have concerns. So he has some work to do. And as you can hear here, this is all part of this new effort to try to go out publicly, contend that these allegations are all false in his telling, and tell senators that he can actually do the job. The question is, do the Republican senators agree with that? He just met moments ago with the incoming Senate Majority Leader John Thune about all of this, and we expect a critical meeting this afternoon with him and Senator Joni Ernst. She is a member, she's a Republican who's served in combat, someone who's actually a victim of sexual assault, and someone who's pushed to change how sexual assault claims are dealt with throughout the Pentagon. And of course, Hegseth has been accused of sexual assault, something that he has denied. But Ernst has been pointedly not taken a position about whether she would support Hegseth, but has said that she would have a thorough conversation with him and frank conversation with him when he meets later today. How does she deal with what Hegseth has been saying privately and publicly? Will she come on board? And will the other Republican skeptics as well, people who are uncertain if they'll back him, like Senator Susan Collins of Maine, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, other Republicans, will they fall in line? And the ultimate question here, too, Brianna, is whether or not Donald Trump continues to stand behind him. Hegseth has been telling reporters all day that Trump has his back, is still behind him, and he spoke to Donald Trump before coming to the Capitol. The question is, how long does Trump have his back? And will these misconduct allegations ultimately become too much of a distraction and force him to bow out? That is what a lot of people on both sides of the aisle are watching here, as Hegseth is making the rounds and trying to make the appeal that he should get the job.
How long can President-elect Donald Trump's pick for Secretary of Defense hang on? Today is a critical one for Pete Hegseth. Right now, Trump's choice to lead the Defense Department is meeting with key Republican senators as scrutiny is growing over allegations of his serious past misconduct.
Now, Hegseth says he's not going anywhere and that he has Trump's full support. Here he is speaking to conservative radio host Megyn Kelly.
He reiterated the same thing this morning. Hey, Pete, I got your back. It's a fight. They're coming after you. Get after it. The media is driving with this ridiculous narrative. It's our time to stand up and tell the truth, and our side, and he knows that.
CNN's Manu Raju joins us live from Capitol Hill. Manu, let's kind of cut through things right now. We know the meetings, there's clearly been a strategic shift in terms of trying to fight back that we've seen today. What's going on behind the scenes? Is this on the brink, or is it possible to turn it around?
It still remains to be seen, because there are a lot of Republican senators who simply are holding their cards close to their vest. They're concerned about these allegations, uncertain about whether Pete Hegseth could actually do the job as Secretary of Defense, and want to hear him discuss in length and in public about these allegations of misconduct, the sexual assault allegation, which he denies, as well as what happened at the time when he ran that veterans group several years ago, in which the New Yorker reported about misconduct, personal misconduct, drunkenness on the job, and the like. So Hegseth behind the scenes has been denying those allegations, and that has alleviated some concerns, but some members still, like Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia, says she does not know how she'll ultimately vote if and when that time comes. Now, there's also discussion about whether there will be a replacement. Donald Trump, we're told, has been looking at possible replacement candidates in case Hexet's nomination collapses. One of them, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. That's someone who, in fact, some Democrats are signaling they could be open to supporting if that nomination comes forward.
I'm considering voting yes on DeSantis if he finally admits that he has lifts in his boots. I'm sure he does. I think maybe 3 inches, 4 inches at least. Yeah.
He's a governor of one of our biggest states. He's served in Congress. He's served in the military. So I think he has what you would look at on paper as the requisite kind of experience you would want in a Secretary of Defense.
It's not 100% clear to me who he wants as Secretary of Defense right now.
And that last comment coming from Senator Josh Hawley, a Republican who had a meeting scheduled with Hegseth tomorrow. He told me that it was canceled, but the transition tells me that they've rescheduled that for next week. But it all underscores the questions that are still on Capitol Hill about whether Hegseth will actually make it, whether they'll actually be a replacement candidate, and whether Donald Trump continues to stand behind him. Hegseth has told reporters all through the course of the day that, in fact, Donald Trump is supporting him. Donald Trump does have is fully committed to pushing him through. And I asked Hegseth, are you considering dropping out for consideration as Secretary of Defense? And he said no. Guys.
Manu Raju live for us on Capitol Hill. Thanks so much. Let's discuss all this with Democratic strategist Megan Hayes and Republican strategist Shermichael Singleton. Guys, welcome. Shermichael, we've all been in this town long enough. I'm very young. What we've seen over the course of the last 18 hours for the Hegseth nomination is like the perfect encapsulation of the doom spiral before the end. But we've also seen him fight back today.
Yeah.
And to Manu's point, senators aren't coming out and saying we're against him. He's still alive.
He is still alive.
Can he turn this around?
His mom did an interview on Fox News today. I watched it. I thought it was very compelling. We'll see how the meeting goes with Iowa Senator Joni Ernst. I think a lot of Republicans are really waiting to see what the senator of Iowa says. I think if she says yes, thumbs up, I think he will absolutely move forward and ultimately get confirmed. If, however, she says, I'm not really certain, I'm not sure, and Megan and I talked about this, I don't know if she'll come out and say, well, you know what, no, but maybe there'll be a call to the president-elect and say, look, the numbers aren't here, Mr. President, you got to choose someone else. So I'm really watching that meeting today to really decide whether this is going to move forward or not.
Yeah, because conventionally, you'd look at what's happening, to your point, and go, he's toast. But the ship sailed unconventional a long time ago.
A long
time ago. I wonder what you think specifically of what you heard from Hawley, him saying, I'm not 100% clear who he wants as Secretary of Defense right now. A really interesting thing today as the meeting has been postponed to next week, which could be next week to never. Depending on how this week goes. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that the Trump team is putting names out there. They're muddying the water, right? They are signaling that we are okay if you guys are not going to vote for him or this is not going to move forward. I think DeSantis is a smart move. He's an executive. He's led a major state. He understands there's some concerns here operationally, and just because I don't agree with his policies doesn't mean he wouldn't be good at running the DOD, but he's also been vetted at a national stage. So, I think the Trump team is smart to put names out there because there are some actually qualified people who have the character and the experience to lead a major organization like DOD.
Michael, to that point, first off, this is very inside baseball, but I can't stop laughing at Hegseth saying never back down, which was the name of Ron DeSantis' super PAC.
No pun intended there.
Very in the weeds on that one. Deep cut.
Deep cut.
I think one of the things that I'm struck by through all this, I'm not surprised by the types of people that Donald Trump has nominated. He said it loud and clear over and over and over and over and over and over. And I want to scream this into the void to people who are like, I can't believe he's doing this, that, or the other. It's the fact that some of these people don't seem to be vetted. They don't seem to have a great sense of what's in their background that I think is striking, because you can pick people that are loyal, that want to carry out what you have campaigned on, and yet still make sure that there's nothing behind the scenes that It's going to be a surprise.
Look, I'm going to be honest with you guys. That is a bit annoying, even to me as a conservative. You don't expect the principal, the president-elect, to know every single thing in a person's background. That's not necessarily the principal's job or role. That's the job for people like me or people like Megan in our former capacities. You're supposed to do your due diligence with a litany of names to present. Hey, if this is who you want, sir, let us do our process of going through this person's background, making sure that there's nothing that's not only embarrassing to them, but also to you. Go ahead, Megan. I see you want to jump in. Go
but
ahead.
some of this is, if they would have done the FBI background checks, I think that some of this would have already come out, because in those background checks, I've had them done when I worked at the White House. They ask you if you have a drinking or a drug problem. They ask people who know you if you have a drinking or a drug problem. So some of these things would have come out, and because they did not do this, they are sitting here with a Matt Gaetz and a Pete Hegseth not getting confirmed. Sorry, just wanted to throw that in there.
That's a fair point. But even if you used a private firm, if the president-elect says, but I still want him, you at least give the team the opportunity to prepare for this. So if we know this is oncoming, let's talk with Mom to make sure the statements are out there. Let's talk with colleagues at Fox to make sure that they can come out and defend their former colleagues. You prepare to be on the defensive, hopefully the offensive towards the end, if you know this onslaught could potentially come. Not having that background information, it does hurt. And again, it's a bit annoying to me because you just don't want the president-elect, who had a great victory, having to deal with this when he should sort of be coasting into his swearing, his confirmation.
Can we consider that if you are Donald Trump and you're hearing, oh, Democrats like Mark Kelly and John Fetterman are open to Ron DeSantis, is that really the guy you want as defense secretary, someone that Democrats are open to? It seems that he might instead want someone who his side will pass without Democratic support. Is that your read so far on all the picks that you've seen?
And I think that Trump is putting himself into a situation where he needs people who are going to be qualified, and I think the senators, Republican and Democratic senators, are making this more difficult than he originally anticipated it being. I think he thought he could just throw whoever they wanted, he'd get a rubber stamp, and the Republican senators are standing up and saying that you don't have the votes for these people. So I think that the Democrats this is how they work together in the Senate.
But I just want to add quickly here, what it shows is that the president-elect is willing to nominate individuals who can get bipartisan support. And I think that's what you want. There were some sort of blue-collar Democrats or blue dog Democrats who did vote for the president-elect, haven't voted for a Republican in quite some time. So to see that of the three names, Democrats are coming out saying, oh, wait a minute here, these are some good people, I would potentially vote for them. I think that's a kudos to the president-elect and his willingness to put forth individuals who can sort of bring Congress together. That's a good thing.
The second time around.
Second time around, that's true.
The ability to shift an Overton window to where Ron DeSantis is the acceptable nominee for Democrats.
They say shoot for the moon, maybe you'll land among the stars. I wonder if that isn't the strategy here.
Let's get right to CNN's Manu Raju on Capitol Hill. Manu, is that what Republican senators are telling you, that most of them just want a picture, they're behind him, and none of them have told him face to face that they have concerns?
Well, there are a number of Republican senators who simply will not say how they will vote on this nomination. They're uncertain about whether they can back Pete Hegseth to be the Secretary of Defense. Remember, just 4 Republican senator defections could be enough to scuttle this nomination, given that all Democrats are expected to vote no. Now, he just wrapped up a critical meeting with Senator Joni Ernst of Iowa. Ernst is someone who is a sexual assault survivor, someone who has fought to change the practices how sexual assault claims are dealt with in the military. Of course, Hegseth has been alleged to have committed sexual assault. He has denied that allegation. But I tried to ask Ernst after their 45-minute meeting whether she's ready to back Hegseth. Do you support Mr. Hegseth's nomination?
It was a frank and thorough conversation.
And she continued to repeat that line, Jake, for the course of several minutes. I've asked her several times about the meeting, any details and the like. Continued to say it was a frank and thorough conversation. Now, in talking to other senators, too, there is still an open question about whether Donald Trump is fully behind Hegseth. Hegseth did tell reporters today that he has the confidence of Donald Trump, and Trump has indicated to him privately as early as today that he backs him. But some Republican senators still are uncertain if Trump will go another direction.
It's not 100% clear to me who he wants as Secretary of Defense right now. He'll answer all of those and many, many more under oath if he wants to, and if the president wants him to. But I don't know what the case is at this point.
One of the things I'd love to hear is that he's committed to not drinking. I think if he would, being familiar with the problems of alcoholism and the dumb things we do when we drink too much, it'd be really nice if he would set that one aside for good, if not at least through a term as secretary.
And that last comment coming from Republican Senator Kevin Cramer, who indicated to me that he's likely to support Hegseth's nomination to be Secretary of Defense. But in reference to those allegations of Hegseth being intoxicated on the job in his previous services leading a veterans organization, something that Hegseth has denied having a drinking problem at all. But he did tell Senator Roger Wicker, who is the incoming Republican chairman of the Senate Armed Services Committee, Jake, that if he is confirmed, he will commit to not drinking if he's confirmed ultimately to that post, something that did alleviate at least some concerns for some senators, Jake.